Hello and welcome back to the Final Whistle podcast. This week we have got an interesting, different style of episode for you again. But as always, I'm joined by Daniel Fears. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Now, today, as I said, we're going a little bit different. We're joining a trend that has been going a lot around social media lately, and we're going to be ranking the Premier League managers in the God tier list maker. Now, we have both got 10 managers each. Dan has taken the even numbered places in the table because we've gone from the Premier League table. Then I've got the odd one. So I'm going to start us off, of course, with Jurgen Klopp. I mean, there's not much to argue here. I forgot to mention our rankings are excellent, good, okay, poor, and bad, and we're basing them off this season. So, as I said, Jurgen Klopp, there's not much we can argue with his down. He's got to be in the excellent column.
Of course, he's won the league and he's so far away from Man City. It's incredible.
Of course, they got 99 points. Just going to put that in there, just as a bit of reinforcement to our position on Klopp. He's quite an easy one. So Dan, we've got Pep next.
I went with okay because with the squad he's got, I think he should be challenging a bit more on Liverpool than what they managed to this season. And as soon as Vincent Kompany left, he knew that he needed to bring in a centre back, but for some reason he didn't. Do you agree?
I would put him more of the from other people. I would put him in good because he didn't have a bad season. I think everyone knew that there was going to be the year that Liverpool did get to City. Yeah, you're right that they didn't challenge them as much, but I think that's just last year Liverpool slipped up, and I think they did that this year. So I think we can either put him in one of them. I put him in excellent / good because they did finish second. Of course, he got 81 points. So should we compromise and put him in the goodish section? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
You could argue both really. Now, third, we of course had the last day entry into the top four for Manchester United, their third place, of course, led by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We all know he's at the wheel. If you ever meet any United fan, they're very keen to say that. Now, I put Ole, in my opinion, in the good tier because when you've looked after Alex Ferguson, Man United have struggled to come back into form and get a decent push for Champions League. But I think that the players they've kind of got a squad that can do that, and I think that Ole's doing a good job there. He's got quite a good project going on. Do you agree with that?
100%. I think they could really be challenging for the title next season if they keep Ole, and they just need to bring a centre back in to play alongside Harry Maguire.
Yeah. Now, fourth place is Mr. Lampard.
I think he's done an excellent job considering he's not had any money to spend because of their transfer ban. That's it, really. I think he's done an excellent job.
They have, of course, secured Champions League football for them. And if you're looking at, of course, Man United finished just above them in third, but they had equal points. Both had 66 points. I think that's a fair enough, justification. He's came up, obviously, he's not had much experience. Derby last year. You could argue that, he hasn't won anything. He had the FA Cup final, which he lost last year when he was at Derby. Lost the playoff final. So he's not got a great record in finals, but as you said, with no transfers, being able to happen for him is quite good. And I think he's got, of course, Werner and Ziyech coming in. We mentioned last week, could we see him, Chelsea becoming a dominant force?
I can't see them becoming a dominant force, but I can see them certainly pushing Liverpool and Man City.
Now, in fifth place is, of course, Leicester. They dropped out of the top four after majority of the year there, pretty much against Man United, secured their fate in that last game of the season. But for Brendan Rodgers, I've put him, in my opinion, in the good tier, because we saw Ranieri had that wonder season, and then they didn't really have. They kind of dropped off a bit, of course, selling Mahrez and Kante. Puel at the start of the season couldn't get them going, but then as soon as Brendan Rodgers came from Celtic, we saw a revival in the side. Of course, he got a bit more energy, and we got them pressing to get better results. Of course, the 9-0 versus Southampton will be a very memorable one. Do you agree that he should be in the good category?
Yeah, he would have been excellent if he kept up his form after lockdown, but he lost it a bit with the players then. I don't know whether that's because they couldn't see them challenging for the title, or whether it's because they couldn't see themselves dropping out. But if they kept their form going till the end of the season, I reckon he would have been an excellent, but I'd say good's a fair.
Well, Brendan Rodgers himself said that after a few little bad results after the restart, that they're not good enough for Champions League football. Do you think that might have given the players a bit of a knock, or do you think that could have encouraged them to prove him wrong?
I think that would have encouraged them to prove them that he's wrong, because they started towards the end of the season. They started putting in a bit more of a push for the playoffs and putting in better performances.
Now, sixth, of course, Spurs. Jose Mourinho. They had a bit of a weird season, of course, with all the Pochettino and then Mourinho coming in, which no one really expected. They got 59 points. Leicester got 62, so it was a bit of got a 3-point gap there. I think, in my opinion, I've put him in okay, because, I mean, he didn't really have a lot to work by. He had good players to work with, but they just haven't really, got much going this season. I think that Mourinho is a bit past his time. We saw he was brilliant at Chelsea. He was quite good at United. He got them second, but I mean, if Daniel Levy can get him some good transfers, I feel that Spurs could do quite well under Mourinho. But I don't think he's as amazing as he was at Chelsea. Do you agree with that?
100%. He doesn't have it in him anymore, I don't think. But you can tell that by his interviews now, can't you? Because he turns up and he says, "I'm not going to make a comment about that because I'm going to get in trouble." So
yeah, fair enough. You
I'll
don't know.
Put him in good.
You put him in good or okay?
I'll put him in good, because he's got them Europa League football, and you didn't see that coming when Pochettino left earlier on in the year.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, in 7th place is Wolves. Many people would say they deserve to be, a bit higher up, but I don't know whether you could put them above Spurs. But they've been a very good team, of course. Had a strong, climb under Espirito Santo from the Championship, and I think that was mainly the big old money of course, him coming in, Neves coming in, of course, the Portuguese revolution at the Molineux. This season, 7th, they were beating a lot of the good teams, and that's why I've put him in good, because he's been all the top teams. They see, oh, we've got Wolves, and they're not necessarily as like, oh, we got Wolves, we can easily get past them. They're a challenging team, and it's always an entertaining match to watch because you don't know what's going to happen. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they always seem to come up with the shocks. They're one of them strange teams that can beat the top teams, and then they'll go and lose to someone like Burnley or someone like that you wouldn't expect them to lose to.
Now, in 8th place is Mikel Arteta. Dan, and this is one of your people, is it? Oh no, this is mine. Sorry. So yeah, Arteta, Arsenal, interesting one. Of course, they've just won the FA Cup at the weekend previously, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few years if they do keep Arteta and give him a bit of money. We've all seen that the club have been very reliant on Aubameyang this season, and if they don't have him, then they are screwed. But I think for what he's he's what he's been given. He's had an okay first season in management. I put him in okay because didn't really, apart from, you couldn't say the FA Cup, but he didn't really do loads to, stand out and go, wow, look what Arteta's doing at Arsenal. I think he's just getting ready. I think he's just securing this season. Now that's why I've put him in okay, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on Arteta?
I think he's had a brilliant season, just in the sense of he's got Arsenal playing again, and he's got them a trophy, and that's what any team wants, especially the FA Cup, because for Arsenal fans, hopefully it'll be the first of many for them.
So what ranking would you put Arteta in?
I'd put him in good.
Yeah, it was a struggle for me between okay and good. It was just looking at, this is their lowest league position, of course, in a long time, but you could blame that on Emery a lot from the start of the season, who's just gone to Villarreal, so we can say good evening to them. Now Arsenal got 56 points, but in ninth was Chris Wilder. What did you make of his season, Dan?
I thought he's had an excellent season. He's got them challenging. They're a very organised team. You wouldn't look at any of their players and go, wow, but all of them know exactly what they're doing, and that's how they beat teams.
What do you mean? They've got David McGoldrick. He's one of those wow players. Yeah, I agree. They've come up from the Championship this year, and I don't think anyone could have seen them coming ninth. And the whole season they've been challenging big teams, but it was very, very impressive from him, especially with the fact that his attack is Billy Sharp, McGoldrick, and Ollie McBurney. How they've managed to, be a threat. That is an interesting one. But yeah, I agree. He's had an excellent season, and be interesting to see what happens next season, depending on what players they bring in. I don't really know where. I haven't looked at Sheffield much, but where they bring in players and what positions they need to fix. Could you see them sustaining about 9th place next year?
I could see them getting Europa League next season if they just sign a midfielder, because their defence is organised, so they don't need a defender, I don't think. I just think they need a midfielder to sustain it.
Now, in 10th place, also on 54 points like Sheffield United, is Burnley and Sean Dyche. Now, we don't know whether Sean Dyche will be at the club next season. There is a lot of, this rumour that he's gonna leave due to, not being happy with the board and the supposed sale of, I think, is it Hendricks to AC Milan, of course. Everyone's well-known transfer to AC Milan for him. So it should be interesting. There's a lot of rumours of where he'll end up if he does leave. But if we look at his season, I think it's okay. There's nothing that stood out for past years where they've climbed up to get more European football. It's an okay season. Nothing to moan about. Nothing to, say, look at us about it. Do you agree with that?
100%. They've not overachieved and they've not underachieved. Because at the beginning of the season, I'd say their target was probably to stay up. So,
Now, 11th place, which I'm quite impressed that they've managed to do this, is Southampton, and of course Ralph Hasenhüttl, everyone's favourite German manager. Now he had an interesting one, of course. Near Christmas, he was possibly getting sacked. Of course, the big 9-0 versus Leicester that they lost. But he's managed to turn it round. They've been quite a good side. I've put them in okay because, again, like Burnley, they lost dramatically near the start of the season, but they've kind of turned it around in the second half. I think, especially, I don't know whether it's him or whether it's just Danny Ings, but what Danny Ings has done for him this season has been spectacular. I don't think anyone could have predicted that this year. But as I said, I think it's an okay season. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Danny Ings has been exceptional, and they definitely need to keep hold of him during the summer because I reckon there'll be some big clubs wanting him.
Now, 12th place, bit of a shock, of Carlo Ancelotti with Everton. Now, this could be either, you could look at it two ways with him at Everton. It could be this instant impact that everyone wants, or it's going to be this long-term project that he could build. We will see out. Personally, I think, considering it's him, I know he's only come in half the season, but I'd put him in between okay and poor, because they've got good players. They've got Calvert-Lewin, of course. Sigurdsson's a good player. They have got the England number one, which could be debatable now. They've got strong players, but nothing seems to be working really for them. I think, of course, give him next season. Let's see what he does. But I personally have seen a bit of a poor this season, because nothing's really happened for them, and they've kind of had another disappointing year. Would you be happy with this season as an Everton fan?
I'll put Ancelotti as okay, because he's not had too much to work with when they went there. They've got a good squad, but it's not like they could have been challenging for anything. And when they came back from lockdown, I thought they looked in quite good form. Then they went on a little bit of a blip, and then they're a really strange one. Like, they're a team that you look at some weeks and you think, what a result for them, and then the next week you look at them and they've gone and lost to a strange team.
They are a very interesting one, and I'd hate to be an Everton supporter, because you never know what's going to happen. Like last season or the season before, everyone's saying, "Oh, look, we might be challenging for Europe this year because why not?" But they seem to have dropped off from being the top 10 club to the mid-table now. Now 13th is Newcastle and Steve Bruce. I put him as okay, in my opinion. He's done quite well, considering, everyone thought, why the hell have you hired Steve Bruce? He came from Sheffield Wednesday. No one really thought he would be able to pull off a bit of a survival for them. They didn't have a great start to the season, but he's definitely come in, and I think he's strengthened things. I'm sure he'll be very disappointed, as many Newcastle fans will, that the Saudi deal has not happened. But that could be a whole new episode of just talking about the Saudi deal and all the issues with that. But do you agree with, when it comes to just Steve Bruce, that he's had an okay season?
Absolutely, he's been incredible for them. They've only got two players really, that Alan Saint-Maximin and Almiron, but he hasn't hit the heights that he was meant to. I think he's had a fantastic season. He's kept them up, which was obviously their aim, and I think they could be top 10 next season.
Yeah, as long as they bring in the right players, because of course we've seen this year how poor Joelinton is, because he can't seem to score. But I don't think they'll offload him, because it's only been one season. But I can definitely see them bringing in someone else, because Andy Carroll on the bench is not going to be sufficient enough to try and get top 10. Now, 14th, Crystal Palace. So Roy Hodgson. What an interesting one. I just put okay, because this is probably where they were expected to be, about mid-table. It's going to be a struggle, in my opinion, for them next year, because I can't see it. It might not go because of the quick restart to the season. For the next season, I don't know whether they'll keep Zaha. He's a bit of a problem for them, but I just put him as okay, because there's not a lot you can really say about their season. They've put a few good results, but there's not much to say. Do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they've not underachieved. They've not overachieved. If they didn't have Zaha, they'll be fighting to stay up. If they've got Zaha, they're a mid-table side.
It's a weird one with them again. They've just they must be very boring to support, because they don't do anything. Now 15th is Brighton, and of course Graham Potter. Now he's always been a bit odd to think about. He's only been of course, he was with Swansea, coming from like Ostersund to Swansea, and now he's got the Brighton job, and they're all right. I mean, I put him between. I couldn't decide between okay because it's 15th. It's quite a respectable finish for them, and a bit poor because they didn't really do anything. But of course they were struggling with relegation at the start. So I guess you could just say he's got on the okay one because he's kept them up. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, they've got no one spectacular in their squad, and they always manage to stay up somehow. So
I think they're one of those clubs that are too good for the Championship, but they're not spectacular in the Premier League like teams such as Sheffield United are. Do you think that's just based around the management or just the players generally?
I think that's the recruitment because they can't do much more with the squad they've got. Like when Aaron Moy was there, he's a top world-class Championship player, but he's not a world-class Premiership player.
Now, in 16th, we had West Ham this season. So, of course, David Moyes taking over the train wreck that was Pellegrini's West Ham team. It's another okay from me because, I mean, you could argue good, but I don't think he's that amazing. Of course, they kept them up. I'm not saying just, but got them up slightly calmly. Now, I could see them doing quite well next season under Moyes because he's obviously been there before and he's back again, and he seems to kind of understand the players, and I think that they can get his style of play well. Do you think that this season is just okay?
Yeah, because they've done what they've wanted to do. They've stayed up, and that's vital for them in their funds that they're going to get. Because if they went down, they'd have to sell Felipe Anderson, have to sell Sebastian Haller. It just wouldn't go well for them.
Now, of course, you can see that their key player there, of course, Mikel Antonio. As a Forest fan, I'm very annoyed that he left, and we definitely want him back after seeing his recent form. Do you think, again, that next season he will be their key player?
Yeah, I think he is every season. He's such a unique player because he's so strong and he's so quick. You normally get one or the other, whereas he's both. So
he's a very good player. Now 17th, just above relegation, of course, is Aston Villa and Dean Smith. Now, I wasn't surprised to see them there. That's where I expected to see them this season. But I still think you could put it as quite poor because they didn't really, deserve to stay up. Of course, the Hawkeye failure that got them that draw, which got them the point to keep them up. But I think he's a good Championship manager, and he's not Premier League level. I don't know whether it's just yet, but he's not Premier League level. We saw his quality at Brentford, and of course getting Villa up. What do you think of the season?
I think it's been incredible for them because you'd have never said them staying up. All right, they've got Jack Grealish, but they've got no one else, and they've known that they've just pretty much saved Jack Grealish for another season because I can't see Jack Grealish leaving now if he knows that he's got Premier League football with them.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to disagree with that because I think they could lose Grealish, and I think that might have been the perfect time for him to leave because he's scored the winning goal to keep them up. You never know because, of course, Man United are interested. We might see him go, we might see him not. It depends because Villa, I think, have put on an £80 million price tag. Do you think anyone's going to pay 18 million for Jack Grealish?
I know United have turned down, they're not paying 80 million, but supposedly Arsenal have came up with a bid for them. But I can't see Arsenal spending 80 million on a player. So.
Of course, we're saying, you just said they're Man United turning down a bid, they're not going to pay 80 million. Well, they think they're going to get Sancho for 50 million, so you never know, they might use their persuasive techniques on him, on Dean Smith. Now, as we do enter the relegation zone now, with Bournemouth, and you can now say ex-Bournemouth manager Eddie Howe. Now, this season has been obviously quite poor for Bournemouth. They never really got going. And I think we all knew after a while, this is their 5th season, of course, was in the Premier League, that this was going to happen. But I still think this was quite poor because they didn't really have any flair about them. They just seemed that they were waltzing towards relegation. Do you agree with that?
If you usually ask me about Eddie Howe, I'd usually put him in incredible because I think he's a world-class manager, but for some reason his tactics just have not been working this season for Bournemouth, and that's why they're sitting in relegation zone.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of talk of who's going to take over. I think the favourite at the moment is actually his assistant manager, Jason Tindall. There's obviously other names linked with it. Of course, it's the Championship, so you get every single name in management linked with it. Of course, there's even Sam Allardyce being linked with them, which is never going to happen. Some people are calling for Harry Redknapp to take over, but of course that is just never going to happen. Now, 19th is the horror show that is Watford. 3 managers this season. Of course, Javi Gracia, I might say that wrong completely. Quique Sanchez Flores, Nigel Pearson, you could say 4, with the Hayden Mullins being caretaker manager multiple times. But we're going to look at Pearson. I think I put him in okay, and I didn't want to put him in poor because he had done a very good job, I feel, because it came up to right till the last day for them to survive, or to not survive as it was. But the club decided to get rid of him for 2 games. I find that a bit stupid because what's Hayden Mullins going to do in 2 games that Pearson couldn't have done? He can either, get them up or take them down. And I think Pearson's the more experienced. I'd give him 2 games. What's going to happen in 2 games? It's gonna change it. But that's just the board at Watford. That they're a bit crazy. Do you think that? Would you agree putting him in the okay bracket?
Yeah, he's done an all right job. He couldn't have done much else. Was he there when they beat Liverpool? Because you can't do much more than beating teams like that, and they were just unlucky at the end, really. Because if they had turned that Arsenal game around, they were staying up, which I thought they were going to do at one stage during that game.
We saw there was a lot of rumours that the reason he had been dismissed was due to a fight with the player, a player or two. I didn't mention with the players. In the dressing room after, I think it was the West Ham game, supposedly, but Troy Deeney came out and said that never happened. Whether that's just an excuse to, give their reason to the fans, we'll never know. But Pearson, he's a quality manager. I think he's good for the Premier League and good for the Championship. But this season, as you said, it did well with what he was given. Now, in last place, with arguably one of the worst sides I've seen in the Premier League for a long time. Of course, they did get results against Man City, which no one expected, but it's Norwich and Daniel Farke. Now, ever since the restart is when I've seen them more, because there's nothing else to do, really. You can just see how, in my opinion, how clueless the side is. I've put Daniel Farke as the only person I've put in bad because watching him try and manage this side, being beaten pretty much every week, he just either stands there, watches, or sits there on the touchline. He doesn't seem to have a plan B, which I know as a Forest fan, which we needed a plan B this season to try and get us in the playoffs. That never happened, and that was the problem. And I think that was Norwich's problem this season. They didn't have a plan B, and they couldn't fight back. Would you agree that he has not had a good season at all?
Absolutely. The players that they've got in their squad, they should be able to stay up in it. Because I think they're going to be a bit of a yo-yo team between the Championship and the Premier League. But they need to be able to start performing in the Premier League, because the players they've got, like Max Aarons, is world class. I could see him getting in the England squad in the future. And they just need to start getting a formation together that will work for them in the Premier League.
Well, they also have, of course, multiple talents. They've got Emi Buendia, who is brilliant. Todd Cantwell. Tim Krul has been vital for them this season. Of course, he's not going to... I don't think he'll leave unless his contract's up. I'm not really sure. But it has been a very, very bad season for Norwich. And it must be very bad to support them because they have been... I don't know, this might be a bit extreme, but they've been a bit of a joke to watch because they've just been disastrous this season. Now that rounds up all 20 managers. As you can see, the template is on screen with all managers ranked. It's been an eventful season, of course, with lockdown and then the restart. We're going to see what happens next year and see who survives the rotating Premier League wheel of management. But thank you so much for listening. It's been quite an entertaining episode for us to make. Thank you for listening. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Thank you for listening. That was The Final Whistle.